I was just at another castle. Casual, right? As you said.
I mean, that's the fourth one this year, my friend.
Second, but who's counting?
I am.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Danielle Blundell.
And I'm Z Christic. This is Design Defined, where we talk about what's happening in the design world and make it make sense for your actual home.
And I have a Substack with the same name, so give us a follow there too, because we go even deeper there into the conversation about design.
So my friend Danielle, what are we getting into today?
We are going to set everyone up for the summer. We're going to talk tableware trends. We're going to talk about your patio, your porch, outdoor, and just kind of how to, have your best Euro summer as far as like your interiors go, because that matters too.
Everyone get comfy, settle in. Welcome to Design Defined. A lot of people wouldn't be very excited to go to a factory, but that's not the case for you.
I have historically loved a factory tour, and this one was historic, so it was like a double win for me. It was also in Germany, so like, again,
Can't lose. I mean, I feel like if I was going to a factory, I would also want it to be abroad. So tell me more about your trip to Germany.
so it was for Villeroy and Boch, and they make, oh gosh, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous tableware. Such a leading, player in that game. And they are literally been doing this for like 300 years. And every piece gets touched by the hand, which in this day and
Amazing.
age is like
Yeah.
wild.
Such a commitment to craft. And I was checking our notes, and there's a fun fact. The company actually made the tiles used in the Holland Tunnel here in New York City, which, I mean, all of us city rats know those tiles back and forth like the back of our hand.
So it started as a family pottery, and tile was something, they don't have tile anymore, but it
Mhm.
was something that they definitely had.
Tell me, what kinds of things did you see there? Like, take me through it, because I would love a trip to Germany right now.
It's in Metlock, which is in the Saarland, so kind of a remote region of Germany, very close to Luxembourg and France, actually. Very close. When I say close, I mean literally kilometers.
Stone's throw.
Literally a stone's throw.
It kind of set the tone for Europe, it sounds like. And
For sure.
what makes Villeroy and Boch so special and different from everything else in the market?
Well, they're not just run-of-the-mill ceramic plates. And, ceramic has its place too, but this is premium porcelain that has essentially been made for 300 years, and they've really, fine-tuned their craft. And the mix that they have just makes the pieces so hard. I mean, you could bang them against a table and they don't break.
Love
I actually
that.
saw that demo, so.
Oh my gosh, that's my new dream
Yeah.
job. But I was also going to say, like, visually, there are things about these pieces that make them heirlooms, no?
Oh, absolutely. Artistry. And I said before, the hand touch, I saw so many people in the factory painting the rims of plates
Wow.
by hand applying designs. One lady was literally hitting with a spoon
Oh my gosh.
pieces to make sure that they sounded right. Like the
Wow.
quality control is that deep. It's not just about like, can this mug hold water? We want to make sure that it has the exact composition,
Yeah.
that it's going to be a long-lasting piece. And that's the thing. These are like modern heirlooms. And I think you have to think about your tableware that way. It doesn't have to be stuffy and fussy and formal because, as we're about to get into the trends, we're moving away from all of that. But you want things to last. And it is nice to like have some heirlooms that you can pass down. I mean, I have a set of 3 mixing bowls that are from probably the late 1800s that were my great grandmother's.
Oh, I love
So
that.
special.
Yeah.
And these are the type of pieces that you can do.
You pass on. Yeah. We talked about quality, which is, of course, love that. But you know me, I'm always eyes and ears open for trends. And I mentioned that some of their designs are indeed leading trends.
I think the first thing that really struck me was sort of like oversized florals. So like, not your grandma's florals, but a very modern take on it. They have this lovely collection called Fleur, and it's literally like a bouquet for your table.
I love that.
4 colorways, kind of a color like what you're wearing. And then they have a purple and a pink and a green. And there's just so many pieces. You buy them open stock. So you
Interesting.
can literally stack a green on a yellow
Yeah.
or mix the purple in. There's a few serving pieces. There's bowls. There's cups. It basically, you're assembling your table exactly
Yeah.
to your liking.
You're not committing to a set, which I love. I'm that kind of shopper. I want to mix and match.
Yeah, and you can
Yeah.
buy a set if you want to, but it's just really fun because you could do something totally different with the same pieces that, I would do.
It feels very right now because we spent some time last episode talking about cottagecore and the
Right.
Bridgerton of it all. So I feel like I'm not really shocked to see this come out into market.
Well, and that's a good segue too, because floral is kind of like the brand's bread and butter. So they do have a more cottagecore vibe one too, right? The Petite Fleur. And that was just so cute. It reminded me of like little flowers dancing on a plate. So
I love that.
whimsical.
Yeah,
Love her.
whimsy maxing is the mood.
Exactly. So very Bridgerton, very cute. And what I liked here is just you don't have to have every single plate. That, of course, you could buy the whole collection or set if you want, but I always think it's fun to do a dessert plate that's printed or patterned, or a salad plate on your white regular plates, and that sort of just dresses things.
Yeah.
A big trend that we've been seeing too recently is kind of putting a plate on your wall, right? Plate wall
Right,
setback.
yes.
When it did it a few years ago,
Yeah.
her house, and now we're all plate wall crazy again.
Yeah.
So I actually bought one of the Petite Fleur for
For your wall. I
Yeah.
love that. I was reading your report on site, shameless plug, and I noticed that you also talked about a 70s design that they brought back from their archives.
Yes, La Boule. And La Boule is
La Boule.
like
Say that 3 times fast.
La Boule. La Boule is just one of the coolest dinnerware products I think I've ever seen. To give you a little bit of an idea, it's spherical. It's usually 7 pieces, and it's 2 place settings that are kind of nested and like arranged all together. And so you're taking one piece off, and then you put the next piece. It's very
The Russian doll of it all.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
The nesting doll, which I love.
Yes, just in plate form. So smart. They did this. It was part of their, archival collection back from the 70s. They brought it back recently. And it's just amazing because it's like functional art.
Yeah, it's stunning. And I love that they make a mini version, right? I was reading that.
Oh, the mini is so cute. Perfect for sauces, nuts, candies.
I love that.
Yeah, like aperitivo hour, bringing back the European
Yeah.
vibes that I think, are sort of everywhere. And it comes both of these collections come in a bunch of different styles. So you can find one that will suit your table, suit your style.
Hopefully we've sold you. You've been watching. We've been floating them above our faces and talking about these beautiful prints. Obviously, shopping for these pieces can be a little bit tricky when you're on a budget. So I feel like there must be some nuggets that we've learned over time to kind of get these pieces. What do you think on that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think the first thing is thinking about the fact that like the mix and match table is in, right? We talked about how a lot of these are sold sort of one-off or, open stock as the retailers call it. So you don't have to invest in a whole set. You could buy just the salad plate and throw it in with your plain dishes, right? Or you could buy just a big platter and, kind of mix that in when you're hosting people over for a game night or a movie night or something like that. Like, I always think it's fun for like a very printed or poppy kind of like plate to just have a couple of those. And then that way you can kind of set a really casual table that way too. If you're using like your coffee table, for example.
And you and I are notorious for finding a deal. So I feel like, are we able to find Villeroy and Boch on sale?
Yeah, I would say set a price alert because you'd be surprised how things get discounted sometimes, and then you can kind of go in and snipe. They're available at places like Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom. So I would just keep in mind too that like the big sale days, right? Like that's
shopping holidays.
Counts.
Yeah,
exactly. And of course, VilleroyandBoch.com too, and they'll run different promotions throughout the year as well. So just got to keep your eye on the prize.
What's the trends for our tables this summer?
Everything, like I said, is just feeling like lightened up, looser. Go out in your backyard and forage for branches, and that's your centerpiece, right? Even just like thinking outside of like the box a little bit, right? Like last episode, we were talking about how citrus fruit is coming on. I love that. I think that can be really inexpensive. You'd be surprised to do something really stunning with citrus. At this Home Goods Castle dinner that I went to that was inspired by the Amalfi Coast, they had these beautiful low bowls. They were large. They were like oversized. We've talked about how like oversized things
is having a moment for sure. Yeah.
You
Sense of scale.
The story with like the large vases, but these were sort of very large bowls, but low. And you just pile them with citrus. But what I loved about what they did at Home Goods at the dinner is that they actually sliced a few. And they put a few, hacks, on top of
The arrangement. Yeah.
on top of the arrangement. It was still low enough that you could talk over it easily.
One detail that jumped out for me, I'm seeing a lot of eyelets. I'm seeing like an attention to details. I have to call out our friend Shay McGee at Target. Her summer line, yes, love, thank you, Collis. I love seeing the attention to detail on the eyelet motif kind of taking over several pieces in that collection.
That collection in particular is just always a great use of texture. And I think that's what eyelet does.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit dainty and delicate. And that's great because as long as you're mixing it in with some things that feel a little bit edgier, it won't fall flat.
Speaking of stores that we love, you and I recently had a conversation about Kohl's.
Right now, that's the place to look for your outdoor carpets, you know, on a budget, to look for some cute pillows for your outdoor spaces. And then we also noticed that they have a lot of birdhouses.
Which I think
Birding
is always in.
Has this ever
Always
come out?
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, even here in the city, I feel like I have a neighbor who is trying to make birding happen on York Avenue. I don't know how, successful he is, but
I love that.
birding is happening.
I've seen floral arrangements done with birdhouses. Actually, the Macy's Flower Show just had a ton of that where they use the houses as like sort of vessels.
We did a report back in October, actually, of a floral show. Floral designers were showing oversized pottery on tabletop. So it feels almost comically oversized, but that's the whole point, is to kind of catch your attention, make your head turn, and bring sort of like, again, a sense of scale to something that used to be, grandeur. And again, for me, when I saw some of the images that came out of that flower show, I was like, whoa. But that's kind of the effect that you want to be having.
What's nice about oversized is that you only need one or two.
Beyond that, though, you and I at work have been covering on the site quite a few lighting moments and LED lamps.
And I think what's great about those is they sort of started in restaurants, right? I mean, they did start there, but they got popular there with restaurants using these little LED lamps. You know, they're portable.
I think like the idea is to make lighting micro and not so overly aggressive throughout your outdoor space. Little pops of like warm, lovely light happening throughout. My hot take, in which we've talked about this, and I might upset a few of you right now, is that I do not want to see string lights outdoor anymore. I would rather see, some really choice, gorgeous LED micro statement lamps. We just covered one. Actually, they're everywhere now. One at Walmart from the Better Homes and Gardens collection was extremely popular with our audience because they look gorgeous. Yeah. And I think they're more exciting than string lights. I'm sorry.
Well, okay. I'm still team bistro.
All right. We can disagree.
Bistro lights are kind of a one-trick pony. LEDs are not.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of like DIYs you can do to kind of like fake it a little bit. Like you could get a chandelier that's metal and find a way to sort of bring it over your table.
I was just going to say, I feel like I've seen some crafty people do pendant lamps floated over tables when necessary with like,
Fishing line is your best friend.
Best friend.
You just want to go a little bit lighter, right? Yeah. That's where like a rattan, like we had mentioned that rattan lamp, that's where a seagrass or a rattan or, even something that looks like a basket. If you can figure out the way to get some light bulbs in there or like puck lights, you can do just about anything.
You would be surprised. I'm sure we're gonna see it.
Obviously, if you have a yard, you're a step ahead, right? But you don't have to have a yard to decorate with plants. And if you have your balcony or any little stretch of outdoor space, we love the designer trick. It's a one and done, and it's a plant stand. And I know that doesn't sound earth-shattering, but when it's done right, it just looks so good and it's so easy. This actually a designer friend of mine, Jennifer Hunter, she did this in her house. And I think what was so groundbreaking for me about it, honestly, is that she just took a really pretty metal plant stand and she put a bunch of gorgeous vintage looking planters on it.
Yeah.
And she filled them up. I think what's so brilliant about it too is that you can just keep it fresh throughout the season because you're just rotating
out. Yeah,
exactly. Rotating in and out, changing the color if you want, like bringing in flowers, taking them out. It's just sort of like almost like a living plant wall, but without having to like build the wall.
And the upkeep.
Exactly.
Yeah, something that we get a lot from readers. Interesting tips that we might have to avoid like common pitfalls.
I think maybe not having any color because the outdoors are vibrant and you certainly want to play to what you have in your space. So,
Right.
like, I'm talking if you have a sofa or a love seat or a chair or chaise, whatever it may be, don't just buy the cream
Yeah.
chair, right? Like, add the cute cabana stripe pillow. Like,
Those are the
have fun.
details. Yeah, those are the
Yeah.
details people should be stressing about. But you and I are of the same thought in that we never do sets inside. Like, that is a cardinal rule that we would not
Cardinal
do.
sin. Yes.
Cardinal
exactly.
sin,
No,
right?
rule is right too.
But
Making it even worse.
but I think you and I both would advocate that if you feel like you are having a hard time designing an outdoor space, outdoor set is actually your friend this time of year.
I think really thinking about your outdoor space as like an extension of your living room.
Right.
Go ahead and get the set,
Get the set.
but then, turn it up with the accessories.
Yeah, that's where you need to stress.
Yeah.
Italy is definitely having a moment.
Yes.
And we can confirm, because by the time that you guys see this, the Devil Wears Prada 2 will be out in theaters. And the cast is headed to Italy, some of it in Milan, but one place in particular, actually, I think kind of like mirrors everything that we're talking about right now in terms of trends, at Villa del Balbiano, which is a 16th century palazzo estate on Lake Como.
So not a castle, but a villa.
A villa, a palazzo. Based on the trailer, we did see Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway pull up to these beautiful gardens where there are topiaries, there are stone walls. And again, the chateau energy is quite high here.
What I love, we're looking at a photo of a dining area there. You can see those oversized lanterns that they've rigged over the table, which is exactly what we were talking about, how people get crafty and try to add an element of light.
Historically and beautiful estates, they were going big and they were not going home.
That's right. They were already home. But yeah, no, you're right. Like, I mean, look at this beautiful hedges and fancy groomed trees, but a lot of layering, right? Like in tiered landscaping happening here. And we're doing tiers our own way.
Yeah.
With the piece stand.
It's not exactly hundreds of years old, but we get the idea.
No, exactly. But it's inspired by it. But you can still get this vibe on a budget. I will point out that there's this beautiful seating area and it's definitely a set.
It is a
It's
set.
not like it's 4 chairs kind of looking at one another, a little mini conversation pit, which is a fun thing to do in a backyard around, a fire pit or without one. This doesn't have one, which I love. So apparently rich people shop for sets too.
And I think if you feel like you're trying to establish your outdoor space this summer and are feeling like, oh my gosh, am I doing this right? Just take a look at the palazzo. That's the energy that you're going for. And you should not feel ridiculous. Like, there is a steep of this trend in history. The other thing that we wanted to talk about today is something that you've actually have got me to add it to my list. You're a big fan of the show Beef on Netflix.
Yes, the first season was amazing, but I have to say season 2 has been way more like interior-y. And it's probably because Carey Mulligan, who we love,
We do love.
one of the stars, but she's a designer. And she's definitely done a renovation of this club where a lot of the action unfolds. It's, like a country club for the rich and famous. So
it's the summer vibe we all want to have.
Exactly. Beautiful set there. There's this like room that she did. And I think in one point she even references having worked at Soho House. So it's going to be like that British and just very charming, very European, but like high-end vibes. There was this gorgeous, I guess it's like a common room, living room kind of area that they use several times. Beautiful wallpaper, pastoral, the murals we were talking about.
I'm looking at our notes and I'm seeing a bit of verdure, which is a big favorite of ours, which for those who are not in the know is a wallpaper that's a take on a historical tapestry from medieval times. So we're seeing a lot of rich detail in the show, which I think is, again, like so much of what we've been talking about this whole year.
And I mean, come on, it is cottagecore to the max, right? They've got the floral sofa with the slight camel back. The fringe all over the ottomans.
Yeah.
And the club chairs too.
There are like 15 elements from this show that we probably could steal one at a time in our own homes,
They also had some beautiful outdoor scenes with these patios, but this is also giving like the jellyfish vibe. The way that they've done. And we talked about jellyfish You never know what you're going to talk about on Design Defined because I feel like design inspiration is just like bonkers sometimes. But we talked about like the sea and how it's been
Mhm.
inspiring lighting and different types of motifs. And
First it was jellyfish, now it's mollusks, and next time we meet, I'm sure it'll be a third sea animal. I don't know. I'm
we'll
excited for the
see.
plot, but I think I'm more excited for the actual interiors and the details that we're going to steal.
And that's all we've got for you this week. I hope you're feeling inspired to bring a little bit of European summer energy into your home, whether that's a little boule on your table or even just a cluster of planters in your front yard.
Even if it's just a $20 rattan lamp or just some lemons, you're halfway there.
You really are. And if you want to go deeper on any of what we talked about today, whether it's tablescaping tips, my tour of the Villeroy and Boch factory, product links, it's all in the show notes. And if you want this kind of content every single week in your inbox, shameless plug for the Design Defined Substack. Same vibe, more behind the scenes content.
Totally same vibe, but next time we do this, I'll make sure I give you a call in the morning so that we don't wear the same shoes. We love you, Gucci, but we're going to be doing that twice.
Sounds good.
See you next time.
Design Defined was produced by Karis Danish with help from Vixen John. It was edited and filmed by Vixen John. Set designers Maya Borrero. That's it for Design Defined. I'm Danielle Blundell. See you next time.